Greg Ehrenberg here from Awesemo.com. I have to hit on the best tournament plays for the FanDuel slate for MLB for the Friday night action. We've got a big slate, a lot of spots to choose from. Like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel, and shout out to Prize Picks, the sponsor of today's video. If you're signing up at Prize Picks for the first time, use the promo code Awesemo to get up to a $100 bonus on your first deposit. And that's always the best way to help build a bankroll in this industry. Use the promo codes, take advantage of sign-up offers, get a little bit of extra money in your pocket. Now, without further ado, these are my favorite tournament plays for FanDuel, a couple of stacks and a couple of pitchers to target, starting with the Colorado Rockies. And there's going to be a lot of ownership going to the Coors Field game today, but not on the Rockies side. Almost all of it is going to be on the Braves. Both FanDuel and DraftKings, we're looking at a team that's likely to be massively popular. But I gravitate a little bit more towards the Colorado side just for ownership purposes. We have the Rockies projected for just 2.5% ownership, but with a 7.5% chance to be a top stack. So one of the most positively leveraged teams on the entire slate. And when it comes to Colorado, their offense generally isn't great on the road, but we don't have to worry about that much because they're at home in altitude at Colorado and Denver. So I think when we look at this offense, we have to consider that at home, they always have upside. And they also are a really good team against left-handed pitching. The Rockies have a 122 WRC plus against southpaws. So I know that Max Fried doesn't present the easiest matchup in the world, but his strikeout rate has gone down a little bit this year. He's not generally a guy that generates a whole ton of swing and misses. So that could be problematic at Coors Field. The Rockies hit left-handed pitching well. So I like them as a low-owned pivot off of the massively chalky Atlanta Braves on the other side of this game. The other stack that I'm targeting today, and it's another one that I think we could pay up to be contrarian, the Houston Astros, who are another team, very talented offense, not picking up much ownership. And here's the deal with any pay-up offense today. They're all going to be contrarian because when you have a 12-game slate and a third of the field is playing the Atlanta Braves, almost every other team that's a pay-up option ends up being under-owned and positively leveraged. But one that I'm honing in on here is the Houston Astros. Only 2% ownership, 6% chance to be a top stack. The matchup against Brady Singer, if you only look at Singer's numbers this year, it looks fairly difficult because Singer's pitched really well, but he's also made half his appearances out of the bullpen, and we haven't seen him all that much as a starter. And if you look at his numbers from last year where he was only a starting pitcher, he wasn't particularly good. He had a 4.91 ERA, a 4.54 expected ERA. The Astros have one of the most loaded offenses in baseball. And just this afternoon, not this impacts the slate, but it's worth a talking point. Yordan Alvarez just signed the biggest contract in the history of the league for a DH. So it's a really loaded Houston Astros offense. They're healthier now than they were earlier in the season. Jeremy Pena has been a breakout rookie. He's one of the betting favorites to win the American League Rookie of the Year award. So I think that Brady Singer's probably headed for some regression when you look at his numbers as a starter this year compared to some of the numbers we saw last year. So Brady Singer, I think he's somebody that we should be picking on, and the Astros are picking up almost no ownership. Good contrarian stack to get to. Moving on over to the pitchers, one guy that I like as a pay-up option to be contrarian is Corbin Burnes. And it's very rare that we could look at Corbin Burnes as somewhat of a contrarian option, but he's only projected for 12.5% ownership on FanDuel. The reason is because everybody's flocking to roster Nathan Eovaldi and Garrett Cole. And I get it. Both those guys have really easy matchups, but Corbin Burnes quietly doesn't have all the difficulty of a matchup of himself because the Padres have struggled against right-handed pitching. San Diego is an 86 WRC plus against righties, and Corbin Burnes has just been his typical dominant self this year. Sub-2 ERA, 31.8% K rate, close to replicating the numbers he had last year when he won the Cy Young. So I really like Nathan Eovaldi. And then, like I said, only 12.5% ownership on him. Compare that to Garrett Cole, who's projected for 30% ownership. Nathan Eovaldi projected for 22% ownership compared to the 12% on Corbin Burnes. But the top stack odds in our top pitcher odds in our top pitchers tool, Corbin Burnes is a 10% chance to be the top scoring pitcher on the slate, whereas Eovaldi and Garrett Cole both check in at 7% while they're more popular. So Corbin Burnes, I think, makes it for a good pivot on the high end off of those guys. And for one other pitcher I like in tournaments, and this is going to be a value option, JT Brubaker, sub 8K. He's had a solid year this year. He has a 3.48 expected ERA, a 23.5% K rate. He's projected for less than 1% ownership on this slate. And I've really liked his matchup against the Arizona Cardinals when we're looking at it from an upside perspective. The Cardinals about league average against right-handed pitching, slightly below, though, at a 95 WRC+. But here's the key. 25.1% K rate. So a lot of strikeout upside for JT Brubaker. There's no ownership going there. If you're in a spot where you're trying to roster a really expensive offense, or let's just say a popular offense like the Atlanta Braves, it's a team that I want to be underweight to in tournaments today. But maybe you want to roster the Braves, which is totally reasonable. It's a great spot for them against Chad Kuhl. They're going to be really popular. You probably want to differentiate a pitcher to make it so that lineup is not massively duped or overlapped with a bunch of other lineups. One way to do that is to roster JT Brubaker for cheap, sub 8K, less than 1% ownership. We have him with a 6.5% chance to be the top value pitcher on the slate. So I see upside in JT Brubaker, no ownership, cheap price tag. I think he makes sense if you're paying up at offense. So that's going to do it for me. To recap, the two offenses I like targeting in GPPs today, the Colorado Rockies and the Houston Astros. For tournaments, I think we're getting good leverage on Corbin Burnes and JT Brubaker. Like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel, and good luck tonight.